taught a lesson in front of this many kids before, so if I seem nervous, it's probably because I am a little bit, but bear with me and we'll get through it smoothly. And you guys, I'm gonna probably have you save your questions for the end. If that's all right with you. All right, so chapter 7, we're going to talk about alcohol, other drugs, and how those things can affect your driving. Okay, so first things first, obviously here in the United States, you have to be at least 21 years or older to consume or possess alcohol. Some of the effects of alcohol on your body, one of the biggest ones is the effect it has on your central nervous system. So specifically slowing down the activity in your brain. I know Mrs. Cross talked about that yesterday. Your brain's a pretty important function when you're driving in order for you to make quick and swift and sound decisions. And then you can kind of see some of the other things that it affects. Your speech, your vision, your loss of coordination, sometimes breathe faster, your heart races a little more, your blood pressure changes a little bit. Those are just to name a few, and you can notice some of them. These are things specifically like a law enforcement officer would be looking for when they pull you over. Whether you're slurring your speech, whether your vision seems to be all over the place. Those are kind of the things that they look for in those traffic stops. Okay, and then more on some of the effects that alcohol has on you. Most of you have probably heard this acronym before. BAC is your blood alcohol concentration. This is what they measure with a breathalyzer in a DUI, DWI stop situation. That is what they're measuring specifically. In Kansas, DUI laws apply to those under the age of 21, and there's a zero tolerance law for individuals that are under the age of 21. So basically what that means is even if you were to blow under that .08 threshold and you were under the age of 21, you could still be charged with at least a misdemeanor. Does that make sense? Okay, and then just to talk about what some of the different levels mean. So at a .02, you would feel relaxed, experience an altered mood, feel a little warmer, and you could still make poor judgments. And at a .05, that's when your speech might start being affected. You might have more hand gestures when you talk. I talk with my hands either way, so that would be hard to decipher with me, but if you're not somebody that does, that might be a giveaway. Your vision can be affected also. And then at a .08, so that's what I mentioned earlier, that's the threshold for individuals who are 21 years of age or older. They can't blow over that limit. Like it says, that's the current legal limit. And at that point, you're considered unsafe to drive. And you'd lose more coordination, your balance, your speech, all those things would worsen at that point. Your judgment, self-control, concentration, all those things. Okay, and then as you can see, like the higher those numbers get, the more intoxicated you are, the more your vitals are affected. So at .01, you'll be physically intoxicated at this point, so it's pretty much like a dead giveaway. They're going to be able to pick it up more than likely. Your reaction time, your control will be reduced, your speech will be slurred, thinking, reasoning is slower, and your ability to coordinate your arms and legs are poor. .105, At the very high level, you'll have much less control over your balance and voluntary muscles, so walking will be difficult, and we'll kind of get into what that would affect in like a field test here later on. But at that point, yeah, your balance, your physicals are more affected. Vomiting may even begin. At point 2, your confusion, you're feeling dazed, you're disoriented, standing and walking are still an issue, your balance is a problem. Your level of pain tolerance will change, so if you become seriously hurt, you may not even notice it. You're less likely to do anything about it. And again, nausea, vomiting, those things might start to occur. And then lastly, blackouts typically begin at this point. So you pretty much lose your ability to do just about anything, cognitively or physically. And then, just to sum it up, like I said earlier, the higher these numbers get, the more dangerous it is. So all physical, mental, emotional, vision, all those things are impaired. You'll feel numb. Let's see what else. So you see we're at point 3, your brain starts essentially shutting down, which you can't do much without the brain, right? So that is, that's the next one. And then point 305, that's like, in comparison, that's like if you were to be put on anesthetic in the hospital. You guys know what that is? Like if you were ever going to surgery, it puts you on an anesthetic. So that is what you would kind of compare that to. Okay, moving on. So some of the things that your blood alcohol content can affect, or what can affect those things: your size, your weight, your gender, how much and how fast you're drinking. Those are all things that can have a direct effect on that blood alcohol content. And then obviously it's the driver's responsibility to make sure everyone's safe in the car. And if you drink anything, you need to have a designated driver. And that's easier said than done for some people. We'll talk about that. Okay. Other types of drugs and driving. So you've got over-the-counter medications. So things like allergy medicine, cough syrup, aspirin, anything that kind of makes you tired, sleepy. Prescription medication. You got blood pressure med, anxiety med, depression meds, pain pills, any types of those things. Then you've got your depressants. So those are more things that are going to kind of slow you down, calm you down. Alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, and then you've got your stimulants, which are going to speed things up, like meth, cocaine, caffeine, prescription drugs, and then you have your hallucinogens, which are mushrooms, PCP, LSD, ecstasy. So yeah, we kind of talked about those. Those drugs can cause drowsiness, slowed reaction time, trouble concentrating, and mixing those drugs can obviously be dangerous and detrimental to your health. So these are some of the acronyms. I was kind of curious because, to be honest with you guys, I didn't really know the true difference between a DWI and a DUI. A DWI, and Mrs. Cross, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. A DWI would be more specific to alcohol. So if you obviously blew over the legal limit, or you didn't pass a field test, whatever that is, then you would be issued a DWI. A DUI could be drugs or alcohol. So that's kind of the difference there with those. And then the last one, operating while impaired or intoxicated, which is an OWI. You don't hear that one as often, but it's still a thing. So you guys have a chance to look. What's up?
Is it OWI, like you're operating like heavy machinery?
Yeah, yes, I would consider that. Oh, full screen it? Yeah. That probably helped you guys to see better. Sorry, I should have done that earlier. Everybody good on that one?
Yes, sir.
So traffic laws. So some things that can happen if you are convicted of a DWI, DUI, OWI, and so forth and so on. You can be convicted of a felony misdemeanor. You can have your license suspended. You can face fines. You can, even depending on the severity of the situation, you could face a prison term. And then beyond that, probably have to serve some type of community service for whatever punishment that you're going to receive. Some of the testing that they do. So you've got a breath test, which I'm sure most of you guys have. Raise your hand if you've heard of a breath test, a breathalyzer. Yeah, I figured. So that's probably the more common one. And there's also chemical testing. You can test your urine. They can do a hair or blood test. Then you have your field sobriety test, which is they're going to check more of your physicals. So some of those things we talked about earlier, like your vision, to make sure you're walking straight. Might give you you guys have probably heard saying your ABCs backwards, those types of things. They're going to check more of your physicals. You guys okay on that one, or can I go on? All right, now I'll let somebody answer this one. Who could give me just raise your hand if you feel like you want to give a good, thoughtful answer. Who could give me a good example of good peer pressure? Go in the back. Yeah, I would agree with that one. Anybody want to add to that? Good.
Pressuring like a friend to do their homework.
Okay, pressuring a friend to do homework. Yeah. Good. Yes, those are all really good answers, and that's even broader and more appropriate for this. Just pressuring somebody to do the right thing, or encouraging them to do their best at something. So yeah, those were all really good answers. Now, can somebody give me an example of bad peer pressure? I didn't take you last time, so I'll let you go. Go ahead. Okay. Anybody else want to add? I couldn't hear what he said. Okay, awesome, yeah. Last one. Go ahead.
Maybe trying to have maybe saying like alcohol is good, like drinking in front of you, and it's good for you, giving you a glass, something like that.
Yeah. Last one.
Saying like everyone's doing it and stuff, that would be cool if you did.
Awesome. Yeah, those were all really, really, really good examples. And I think you guys hit those on the head. And those are things that you guys are going to face more and more and more as you go through high school. It's just part of it, and college. And honestly, sometimes beyond that. So those were all really good answers. So here's some things you can do to cope with peer pressure. We got a lot of jokers in here, or at least I think a lot of you guys think you are, but I think using humor wouldn't be an issue for some of you. So use that to your advantage a little bit. You can walk away. The oldest one in the book, just saying no. Sometimes it's not that easy. I went through it. But if you're repetitive about it, that might help. Use teamwork. You know, if you see somebody's being pressured into doing something, and you want to step in and help them out, that could be, a good idea too. Everybody good on that one? Okay. I think this is the last slide. Lastly, you just got to make responsible decisions when it comes to engaging in some of those behaviors that might put you in a bad position. And then through the years, there's been a lot of programs that have been developed to educate young people on, how to put yourself in good situations and make sound decisions, and so forth and so on. So those are some of those programs. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, that's probably one of the more notorious ones. And then, yes, SAD, I've heard a little bit about that one too. Not so much the middle one, but those are all three pretty prevalent programs that are offered. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Awesome.